Assalamu alaikum, listeners. Welcome back after our short ad break. In the first half, we had Abdullah here with some interesting facts, and we had brother Ismail, young brother Ismail, 11-year-old he was. And now we have with his father, Nathaniel Brown. They're talking about wrestling. Today, we have our lovely sisters, Safia and Zakia, who are our regular co hosts with me. You want to say Assalamu alaikum, girls?
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
So we are now streaming live on Facebook. If you've just joined us, we have a special camera today. It's a 360 camera. Have you noticed it, Safia?
Yeah, I can see it, but it doesn't seem to be moving around.
It doesn't need to. It's actually got the all angles. It's moving around on my screen.
Is it the
Oh,
fisheye one?
good.
I think I saw it when I think there was a show on yesterday that we were watching, and you could just see it swiveling around.
Yeah, it swivels and it picks up on your voices. So at the first part of the show, we had a couple of riddles, and I'm just going to quickly read them in a second. I want to also declare our winner. Our winner for the MOT is Azhar, who has won the MOT competition, and he's been involved in a lot of competitions over the month, and he is the only one who's actually got the right answer. And I did say whoever gives the right answer will win. So we will get in touch with you, and you will win a MOT. If you do not drive, we will give it to your parents who are driving. So Azhar, we will get in touch with you in due course. Abdullah left some riddles that we are just entertaining you guys with. Whilst we have a serious topic, I'll give you the riddles now, and at the end of the show, we will give you the answer. So, Safia Zaki, you can actually guess if you want, but don't give the answer away if you know it. I'm not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. I don't have a mouth, but water kills me. What am I? That's riddle number one. Look at the faces.
I'm not that great. I riddled
Okay.
I went in one ear and out the other. I'm not water, but water kills me. What? Say that again.
I'm not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. I don't have a mouth, but water kills me. What am I? Second riddle is I have a little house in which I live all alone. It has no doors or windows, but if I want to go, I must break through the wall. What am I? That's riddle number two. So we have Inaya and Mustafa who've got the right answers, and I'm sure they are youngsters. So thank you very much for participating. Now, over to our lovely co-hosts in the studio. Can I get you to give us a bit of an insight of what we're going to be discussing today?
Yep. So what we thought we'd touch on today is kind of following on from our last 2 weeks, which were the week before last was kind of all about what's going on in the world at the moment and the protests of Black Lives Matter. Last week was about Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, and then this week we thought we'd touch on like slavery and like Islam and slavery. And if we get a bit of time at the end, we'll talk about kind of Churchill and if he's deceived as a hero or a villain. So yeah, we're continuing our theme of educating kind of the youth on kind of current scenarios and what's happening at the moment. So I'll just pass on to Safia, who will talk over kind of some current affairs that are happening.
Yeah, so if you've been like watching the news and stuff, you've probably seen that the protests are still going on for the Black Lives Matter movement. But as well as that, there's been some some statues of like slave like owners that have been like taken down, and like the statue of Winston Churchill, who's I think it's in London, and that was like it was like a big thing, like it was going to be vandalized, or it was going to be something. So they've covered that up, so that one didn't get vandalized. But there was one, I think it was in Bristol. It was a slave owner, and his like statue got taken down and like thrown in like a river or reservoir or something. So we just because it's like quite relevant, because we're going to be talking about slavery today. So that was just quite a nice link.
So what's happening is overall, the protest about Black Lives Matter has now got a bit more of a momentum, and the challenging here is about what happened in the slavery times and the statues that have been erected throughout our country. People are challenging why they're there, and I think if I recall correctly, I read something about the Bristol situation, that there were a lot of petitions prior to this.
Yeah.
It wasn't just somebody out the blue wanted to pull it
No,
down.
no.
The community, they had, spoke to the council and wanted it removed, and didn't think it was appropriate for having this individual on show. And obviously the protest took another another course of action, and people removed it. Agree with it or disagree, that's down to yourselves. But it's just making more awareness of what we're talking about in terms of slavery.
Yep. So I just wanted to start off by just talking a bit about the British slave trade. So for some of you, you might know, you might not, but it began in the 16th century when the Europeans started to settle in America. And what they did was they started to import Africans as slaves. So over the next 300 years after the 16th century, there was actually more than 11 million people that were made into slaves. Like 11 million people, that's a lot of people that were ended up being slaves. So from the UK, there was ports such as Bristol, Liverpool and Glasgow, and they basically sent out loads of ships a year to kind of get these slaves. So a lot of the cities actually grew rich on the profits of the industry, which depended on slave-made products. So these included cotton, sugar, and tobacco. So what they'd do is they'd basically import these slaves from Africa and other countries, and then they'd make them produce all these cotton, sugar, and tobacco.
But like, as you can tell, like tobacco, cotton and sugar, like it's not necessities. Like there weren't things that people actually needed at that time. It was just like luxuries. So that's why it was also such a big problem as well.
Yeah. So actually the campaign to like basically stop slavery began in the 1760s, and it was long and hard fought. But there was also people that were saying, oh no, slavery should be a thing, but there's people that were arguing against slavery. So it was kind of like a massive thing. But in 1807, Parliament passed an act to stop slavery trading, which I don't think ended up actually stopping at that point. I think it stopped a little bit later on in life, but that's kind of when the act of slavery stopped, slave trade stopped.
But Parliament can pass something, but even to this day there's still like people that are being like treated as slaves. Like maybe that label isn't on them, but I think Zakir's gonna talk a bit about like what an actual slave is and how people treat them as like not human beings and stuff. So she's gonna go on a bit about that.
So a slave is effectively like somebody who's used. I don't even know how. A slave is quite well.
So the actual definition we got this off Google is a person who is the legal property of another and is forced to obey them. So like these like slave owners, like they actually like owned these people. Like these people, like they didn't have a life by themselves. They were actually owned. Like it's it's so like degrading. You don't have your own life. They weren't like valued as human beings. They were valued like less than human beings. That they were owned. These people were. It's
like normally you'd say that like your parents, I guess. Would you say your parents own you?
No, they look after you.
As in, like your parents are your parents. So like
your guardians,
say that,
your guardians.
But like these people, there were no relation to their slave owners. Like they were nothing to them. They were literally just labor.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they were. They were treated actually quite poorly. I think Sophia was mentioning some of the conditions of the slave. They didn't have any rights. We'll talk about Islam and how the slavery in Islam. We'll talk about that a bit later. But these. In Britain, like the slaves, they didn't have rights. They were like put in small confined rooms, like they were just like used and abused in horrible ways, and like.
So they were in Britain and a lot of in America as well.
Yeah, in America.
So we've come across stories, we've read stories, we've seen films dictated around how they used to use these people, in their farms, in their lands, and to grow the crops. And in essence, the person generally was always a white person benefiting from their from these people doing the work and harvesting their crops, looking after their mansion, their house, and their hundreds of acres of land, and all of this was done by a small army of people who were plucked up from somewhere in Africa and brought in ships, in horrible conditions, locked in cages, because obviously people were retaliating. You're not gonna sit down and get on a ship. They are shackled. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever. No, we haven't been shackled, but if you have anything tight around your wrist, it's gonna scuff.
Yeah.
You're gonna be bleeding. So people are in a lot of pain in been dragged around these ships and into these ships, and you're on seas. Probably the first time you ever been on a sea, on a boat,
Yeah.
on a ship, and people were falling ill, and unfortunately, those people who were ill or who had any kind of problems, they would throw them overboard and let them drown.
Because they weren't useful to them.
Yeah,
then,
but,
were
and
they?
it's like when you buy something, like you want to buy it in like good condition and stuff, but these people, they were like putting like they were only had like 4 foot space in these ships, like they were so overcrowded. It was like 4 foot space, and I don't know the exact figures, but it was like 3.1 million slaves crossed to England or Britain, but only like 2.6 actually survived. So that's like nearly like a million people that actually like passed away because of like the horrible conditions and stuff. And it's like in like from Britain to Africa, like it's a long time. Like imagine like in that 4 foot, like I think all of us here are like bigger than 4 foot. Imagine like being crouched.
That's what I was just trying to work out. I'm 5'4".
Yeah.
So you got
And
small
I'm
spaces.
small.
Yeah,
I'm
you got
small,
small
right?
spaces.
These people are probably tall. I'm 4 foot space. I reckon is about the size of that
It's
poster.
horrible.
Yeah.
It was literally no,
4 foot.
like smaller than that. Like they,
But
like
that's
they,
tiny.
these are like big, like men, like
Yeah.
big men that have like put in these small spaces. Like
Cramped spaces.
yeah, like imagine how many like months it took to get
To
from
get to-
Africa to
yeah.
Britain, and they're like stuck. Like they're not even giving like proper food. Like they're giving like nothing. Like they're like chained up to each other. Yeah, like with like no personal space, nothing. And like I just like we can't even begin to imagine like the conditions that they were in.
Dread to think. And then obviously they're coming on ships into a new place. They don't
Yeah.
know the language. They don't know the people. They've got nobody waiting for them. And leaving, they're probably being plucked from their young families, and if their fathers, or their parents. Even the ladies, they've just been picked up and up on a ship, like a commodity.
Yeah.
Something that is worthless.
But like, when they did come to Britain, they weren't like, oh, this person can have this. Like they were traded like cattle. So like, do you know how here like we sell like animals and stuff? Like I think like in the olden days they used to like have like markets, and they used to like it was called like cattle market, and they used to call like they used to show the cattle, and then
Yeah.
they used to say like bid on it, like stuff like that. Like these human beings were being traded off like that. Like
animals.
imagine that,
Like,
yeah.
That's it.
Like I can't we can't even begin to imagine what it would be like. Imagine how degrading that is for someone like to be like sold like cattle. Like
Yeah, I was gonna say. So obviously we've spoken about how slavery was then, but it kind of got like the Parliament passed what's it called?
the law.
A law.
Yeah.
That's it. My mind went blank. Passed a law to say that slavery can't happen anymore. But really, you've got to say what is slavery. So I'm gonna ask you a question.
Okay.
Is child workers the same as slavery? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Wow. What I would think is obviously it's a difficult question now. I'm in two minds. If you're forced, let's say, if you're forced by somebody who aren't your parents to do it, then definitely slavery. But then, in the same hand, thinking about the developing world, you've got a parent, you've got a couple of children, right? The parents need money to survive, and they've got their children involved willingly or as part of helping the family. Then that's you supporting each other to survive. But it still bothers me because children are children. You'd
Yeah.
expect them to have some sort of education, but we're talking from a very modern first class world viewpoint, and we could not imagine how these parents what's going in their heads and what circumstances are forcing them to do what they're doing to their children. Putting them out on in a mine, for example, or embroidering clothes or making in sweatshops. Yeah, so I don't know if I have the right answer here, and I'm
guess
struggling.
there is no right answer to it. It's just I guess the way that you could think about it is, okay, yes, slavery as in how we knew of it then has, I guess, like to an extent calmed down or stopped. Or I don't want to really want to say the word stop because I think it still happens in its own forms, but has it really stopped? That's what I think we've got to ask ourselves. Like, you think these big retailers such as like Primark and like these where you can get basically like good, like decent quality clothes for cheap. You look at where they're made, Bangladesh, where there's a lot of children making them. I think there's even some of them that you can see from Pakistan.
That's right.
It happens as in like you, okay, maybe they are getting paid, but not you look here in the UK, I'm sure you have to be 16 to have
Yep.
you can do a paper round or something from 13, but you can't work over a certain amount of hours. But to have like a normal job, you've got to be 16.
So basically,
haven't
you got to be an adult, really.
Yeah.
And that's the privileges we have.
Yeah, whereas like in other countries,
Yeah.
as soon as I guess you can, they probably because I guess they need it. There's demand from places like our country.
Yeah.
They need it there. Then these children are going out to work. You're right, going to
Support.
yeah.
So let's use the word. Maybe they are supporting the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably
in
is that.
in the most positive way I can say. But then there may be some who are
Forced,
children are slaved by the, let's say, local gangster people, the
Yeah.
factory owners, or they have no parents. They might be orphans, so they're forced to do it to make a living for themselves. And rather than begging, they've been put in this option to do some work and have some sort of survival, maybe some food or a shelter, maybe not payment.
Yeah.
There is a lot of things. So it's not a generic thing to assume what's really happening, but it is still awful, isn't it?
Yeah, like so I wanted to ask, do you think that, would you say poverty is the root cause of slavery? Like what do you think is the cause of it?
Like I think it could be like poverty, like how you've been like brought up, like that kind of thing, or it could be like it could be like race as well. Like that's a big one. Like the way that you look, like people like assume, like touching a bit back upon like what we were talking about before, like the slave trade and stuff, like in the UK and stuff like that, put like an idea in people's mind that if to be like a certain, like obviously because all the slaves, like most of the slaves, they were from like Africa, like they were obviously of a different skin color like to the people that lived here originally, and that puts like an idea in people's head. Like even to now, people still have that ideology.
Superiority.
Like, yeah, like it's awful. Like it's such a like it's a horrible ideology to have. But still, some people still think, oh, like if you're black, like you should be treated like a slave. Like they still have that. Like some like older
Mentality.
people,
Yep.
yeah, that mentality. Like it's horrible, but some people still have it. So you might be like the richest person in the world, but some people, like you, just because of your skin color, they might think, oh, like they've just then won't respect you for that.
I think you were saying earlier as well about that there was this in the press a couple of years ago. I actually it could have even been like in the last year or so. There was this Arab princess, and she was basically saying how like all that kind of Pakistanis and Indians are good for is to be a slave.
Yeah.
Like so, it's literally still happening now. Like where with a
Yeah.
slightly darker skin complexion, and therefore we should that's all we're good for, kind of thing. Like it's still indirectly happening now. Really.
So I think what we're saying here is that poverty plays definitely a big part in it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Somebody who's got who's well-to-do, feels that they can, buy people, buy workers, and we're talking about, low-skilled people from abroad. And you use that example in Arabia. There is that element of people having, maids and all sorts from all over the world working, and they are being treated in maybe a slave-like fashion. Whilst it is in the modern world and they're getting some sort of payment out of it, but the conditions may not be as, it's like a normal job that we have a 9 to 5, have holiday pay and, so there may be stuff like that happening. And I think poverty is one thing, and then, we're discriminating on what they look like and their, their race. And that's what it kind of really comes down to, doesn't it?
There was a really interesting picture. I think my sister sent it to me on Instagram, and it was like it's kind of relevant to what we're talking about. It was a picture of like some women, like white women at like a nail salon, and then there was all these like kind of Chinese ethnic people like doing the nails, and then they switched it around, and then they took a picture of like they did like obviously edited the image and basically made it that the white people were doing the nails, and it's just like it just makes like such a difference. Like that would be deemed as so inappropriate that like they're doing it for them. Like I think it was a very powerful picture actually, like how they deceived it. Like if it was the roles were reversed,
You look at it differently.
How much you'd be like, even I looked at it differently. I was like, oh god, that's not right.
Why do you think that is then? Is that
I think it's because in you see kind of like not all the time. There's some really like really like people that have really been successful in like the non-white communities. There's obviously loads of people that are, but when you do look at like literally the nail salons like these girls visit, they're all Chinese owned businesses. A lot of them are Chinese owned businesses. You go to get your waxing done, for example. I'm literally talking about women's stuff here, but like then you see it's a lot of like kind of like Asians that are doing it, or like, and it's very low
Paid, skilled.
not I mean, I wouldn't say low skilled, but low
Yeah, you
paid,
have to be
low
big skill to do stuff like
but
stuff
it's
like
very
that. Yeah.
low, like you're not paid an awful lot. Like, okay, you can make a business out of it, but really, like it's
The people
not.
the people who are doing it aren't necessarily owning the business, are they?
Yeah.
They're working, and I think that they're being exploited in a way. So I'm sure you don't wake up, as you grow up as a young youth and say, well, I want to be I want to do manicure. So these women, whoever are doing it, it's not going to be their ideal job, is it? It's not going to be the job that they want to wake up.
Maybe for some people they want to do like nails, but for most people you'd probably want to go and work. I mean, like so when you go and get hair, to be honest, I don't know, I've never had my nails done, but apparently it's not like majorly expensive, for example. So
Yeah, like
then,
how are these
them
people getting the money?
That's the question. Like how much money are they earning? Like, okay, I guess there's some like really like on the end of our road we've got a posh salon which isn't owned by like Asian people, it's owned by white people, and they're like deemed as higher quality, higher class, where you'd be willing to pay that extra like £10-20. Whereas you go to Wolverhampton Town near the art gallery, you've got that nails for you, and you just see like literally like
£15 or
something like that. It's significantly lower, the prices.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm acting like I know a lot about nails. I really don't. I've never had my nails done in my life, but that's just like an example how that picture was just quite a powerful picture, how they'd like just shown if the roles were reversed, it would be like a massive thing.
But I think it's like we might not like people might not be like shipped over, and people might not be like chained up and stuff, but like stuff like slavery still happens. That like some people like they're like maids and stuff, yeah. Like some of them, they worked like so hard and like so much that they are basically treated as slaves. Like they have to do everything. Like sometimes it's their job, but literally sometimes it's just to live, because some of these like girls, they've like come away from their family to work for these owners, and they're not given actual money. Like Brother Yusuf said, they're like literally given like food. They're literally given like a place to stay. Like they're not given money for it. Like it's not that.
So I'm sure before what would happen is, like, I don't know when this was, so I'm gonna like loosely translate this. If anybody actually knows, then let me know. But the owners would give them like coins, but like they could only spend that in the owner's shop or something like that. Like you could basically like you could only like buy within the like like when I say buy, like they're probably like food and stuff like that. Like you could you couldn't say like now if you got money you wanted to go to Primark. You could, but like then, if you worked in New Look, you'd have to only go to New Look kind of thing, and it was like there was like something to do with that.
Can I, at this moment, just break the seriousness of our topic and just go into our first nasheed, and we'll see you after the nasheed finishes. Straight after the break, we'll see you on the other side, inshallah.
I've been waiting, I've been hurting, 'cause I've been falling. I need your help. My heart is breaking, so tired of crying. Lord, I'm calling. I need your help. I don't wanna fight no more. I don't wanna fight this war. Oh na na, oh na na, oh na na na. I don't wanna fight no more. I don't wanna fight this war. Oh na na, oh na na, yeah. Astaghfirullah. Forgive me, Allah. I'm so broken, my wounds are open, my life is frozen. I need your help, 'cause people always let me down. I'm losing all my air right now. I'm suffocating, I might drown. I need your help. I don't wanna fight no more. I don't wanna fight this war. Oh na na, oh na na, oh na na na. I don't wanna fight no more. I don't wanna fight this war. Oh na na, oh na na, yeah. Astaghfirullah. Forgive me, Allah. I don't wanna run anymore. Forgive me, Lord, don't close your door. I promise I surrender. I'm giving you my heart and my soul. I've been thinking about my past. I wanna say I found you, Lord, at last. I just wanna tell you that I really love you. I know you'll always be by my side. Forgive me, Allah.
Welcome back, listeners, to our live Kids and Youth on Air. We are live streaming on Facebook, ramadanradio.com on our website, and we are on Facebook and we have Instagram. If you aren't following us, give us a like, share, and follow, and download our app both on Google and Apple, Ramadan Radio Wolves. So, guys, we've got last segment of our show. We have our sisters Safia and Zakia. We're talking about slavery and you know our understanding of what's happening around the world. Before we go back to that, I just want to remind our listeners who have been texting in about the riddle. Abdullah left us, got us all kind of confused, hasn't it, Zakia? So I'm thinking what the answer was. So the first riddle was: I'm not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. I don't have a mouth, but the water kills me. What am I? So if you know the answer, does that get you know the number? What do they need to text?
They need to text 07440420432.
Fantastic. There's a second quiz. A quiz shouldn't be a second quiz. A riddle, second riddle. And the second riddle is: I have a little house in which I live in all alone. It has no doors or windows. And if you want to go out, I must break through the wall. What am I? So this is what Abdullah's left us with at the start of the show, and I have the answers. I couldn't figure. Did you know the answers? Do you know the answers?
No idea.
Okay, no idea.
No idea.
So he's left us with this. Now I've got the answers right in front of me. I will give the answers at the end of the show. And if you've got any ideas, do drop us a message, and we will read your texts out on our WhatsApp. Our studio number is 01902 972 150 if you'd like to give us a call. And before the break, we had a lovely nasheed. And now on the last segment of our show, we are going to continue with slavery, and over to the girls.
So in this next bit, we just wanted to talk a bit about what Islam says on like slavery and so we just wanted to clarify that everything that we're saying now, this was from like when Islam was like obviously like when the Quran was revealed and stuff, and how like back then it was like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So like things have like, because we're now in the modern world, like things have changed like a lot. So everything that we're saying now, it was back then, because obviously slavery was like a massive thing then. Like you can't even begin to imagine how big it was then. Like people were like, there was a lot of slaves. So when obviously the Islamic law came down, there was two types of people that could become slaves. Could become slaves, which was as a result of defeat in a war that was legal according to the Sharia, and if the person or child was born to two slave parents, and so that was the only two cases where someone could say, okay, I want you to be my slave. And but Zika is going to go on to the like what rights these slaves had.
Yep. So like Sophia mentioned, so in Islam they did allow slaves, but slaves had rights. So I'm just gonna walk you through the rights of the slaves, and I'm reading this. This isn't me making up. This is just the pure fact. So
just the first one was prisoners. Is that what was
yeah,
the first
yeah.
one
So
was?
when the prisoners of war, like Sharia law, like do you know?
but the war had to be
sorry.
done in accordance to Sharia, and they had to have won it in accordance to Sharia. So it couldn't just be a random war. Like it had to be done properly.
Yeah.
For them to have been like actual, like won the war.
Yeah.
So these are the slave rights under the Islamic law. So the Islamic law gives slaves certain rights. So the first one is slaves must not be mistreated or overworked and should be treated well. Slaves must be properly maintained. Slaves may take legal actions for a breach of these rules and may be freed as a result. Slaves may also own property, and slaves can actually also own slaves. Slaves can get married if their owner consents. Slaves may undertake business on the owner's behalf. Slaves that are actually guilty of crime can only be given half the punishment under the Sharia law that would be given to a non-slave. And the last one is a female slave can't be separated from her child whilst the child is under the age of 7. So I guess until before they're baligh. So they're the slaves. So in Islam, slaves have rights, and they're defined rights, and you can't break these rights of slaves. There's also there's rules under which slaves actually can get freedom. So Islamic law allows slaves to get their freedom under certain circumstances. It divides slaves with the right to freedom into various classes. So the I'm not going to read Muktab.
Maktab.
Yeah.
Muktab, a slave who has contractual right to buy their freedom over time, so they can buy their way out of slavery, and the Mudabbar, a slave who will be freed when their owner passes away, and then so they're the slaves' right to freedom, so they can either buy their freedom, or when their owner passes away, then they're freed.
So like if when we like compare that to the slavery that happened like in Britain and stuff, like the slaves that in the Islamic time, they literally had rights, that they were treated as humans. I think another one is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that they should be treated as like your family, as like your neighbors and stuff like that. Like they were like kind of bringing part. They were brought in by the family, and they were given a lot of rights. Whereas like in Britain, it was like later, it was in the 16th century, like so many years after the Prophet. They still didn't have rights then. They were treated like inhumane. They were like chained together. They were given, like what we said before, they were given like 4 foot of space. That's it. Like that was like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't like completely say like no slaves at all, but then he gave them rights so that people would like, so it kind of wasn't a slave anymore, because okay, they were owned by their owners, but they were given like these rights, like they were treated as human beings, and that's the Prophet's, that's how the Prophet dealt with it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to talk you over like 2 scenarios where how the Prophet treated slaves. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam treated slaves as human beings and clearly held some in the highest esteem. So the first example is he personally ensured the freedom of Bilal radiallahu anhu, an African slave who had converted to Islam. Bilal was chosen to be the first muezzin of Islam because of his beautiful voice. So as we all know, the muezzin is the person who calls does the call to prayer. So this just shows like how he freed him. And the second one was Zayd. He was a young boy who had grown up in the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a slave. He remained with the household and was basically brought up as an adopted son. Even after he was freed, he was amongst the first 4 people to adopt Islam. Indeed, when Zayd's father, a noble, tracked down his son, he offered to buy his freedom from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Zayd that he was free to go with his father, but actually Zayd chose to stay with the Prophet. So that just shows, and also actually the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam married a Christian slave girl. So it shows that although there was slavery in Islam, actually the Prophet treated them
like
very,
their family,
very good. Yeah. So
like, and in the Prophet's time, there were some rules that were like given about slavery. So he stated that freeing slaves was an act that God found the most acceptable. Zakat was often used to like given to free the slaves. He stated that freeing a slave was the appropriate way to gain forgiveness for certain wrong things. Ordered that those who committed certain wrongs should be penalised by having their slaves freed. And he stated that slaves should be allowed to buy their freedom, and if necessary should be given the opportunity to earn money, or be given the opportunity or be lent money by the state. And in order to do so, he allowed slaves to be freed in certain circumstances. And he stated that when a slave owner had a child, the child could be freed and could inherit the money from the father. So yeah, so there was a lot of it wasn't just, oh yeah, slaves are allowed, but there was a lot of things to go around, and they had to be treated really well.
So there's actually a few hadiths with regards to kind of slavery in Islam. So he will not enter paradise who behaves ill to his slaves. The companion said, "O Apostle of God, have you not told us that there will be a great many slaves and orphans amongst your disciples?" He said, "Yes." "Then be kind to them as your own children, and give them to eat what you eat yourselves. The slaves that say their prayers are your brothers. Be kind to slaves as to your own children, and those that say their prayers are your brethren."
Brethren.
Yeah. They slaves are your brothers, and Allah has put them down under your command. So the one under whose hand Allah has put his brother should feed him of what he eats, and give him dresses of what he wears, and should not ask him to do anything beyond his capacity. And if at all he asks him to do a hard task, he should help them. That's powerful, that is.
Yes, you're right. It's fantastic that we have those values instilled back in the 1400 years ago. This was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, in essence, what you're saying is that we've got those people who were enslaved at those times. They still had rights. That's
Yeah.
what we're
Very-
saying. That's what we're saying.
It says it to the extent where even if you give your slave a hard task, you
You
should
should
help
help
them
them,
with
yeah.
it. So it would, and whatever you should wear for yourself, you should give your slave to wear. Like, it was, they really had good rights and were treated very well. Yeah, so that's that. So there's also another one that says that there are 3 categories of people against whom I shall myself be a plaintiff on the day of judgment. Of these 3, one is who enslaves a free man, then sells him and eats the money. So basically somebody who sells a slave.
Yeah. Like yeah.
Yep. So they're all from Bukhari.
Yeah, but like what you're saying about Bilal radiallahu anha, like he was a slave, and the Prophet like sent Abu Bakr. I don't know if the Prophet didn't have that much money, but he sent Abu Bakr to buy the freedom, and that's like that was such a nice thing to do. Like even like for us like, to hear about it, like imagine like I think we've
Prophet
all
doing
watched.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we've all like watched the video. I think it was on the message, and when like they were like the slave owner was like putting like a hot rock on Bilal's chest, and he was like and Bilal kept saying, oh no, Allah is the one, Allah is the one. Like that's how they were treated. Like they were literally a hot stone in like the blazing desert. A rock was put in his chest, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he freed Bilal radiallahu anha. Like he had that much respect, and he loved Bilal like radiallahu anha. Like he was the muezzin, like he's the one that called everyone to prayer. Like imagine that love, and that this Bilal was a slave before the Prophet freed him. And I just think it's like really nice for us that that's the respect that everyone should have. And obviously like all these rules and stuff, they were obviously 1400 years ago, so obviously they don't apply now. But even when slavery was at its highest, the Prophet still made them have rights and stuff.
So, in essence, what we're saying here is that look, slavery was existing in many
Pre-Islamic.
pre-Islamic history, and when Islam came, it wasn't able to abolish it overnight.
Yeah.
What happened is there was many rules and guidance that we needed it, so it helps over the years to phase it out. So Islam changed the way that which slavery was dealt, and created many new ways of liberating slaves. Okay, and it blocked ways of enslaving people. So it wasn't encouraging people; it's ways to get people out of
of it.
slavery, and it established guidelines, which then means that there were less and less people who were slaves. So we've got to make sure people understand the point that we're making, that it was prevalent then, it did happen, and these are we mentioned the 2 occasions when it did happen, and then how we could use Islamic guidance to abolish it. And today, we have, there's no encouragement of slavery.
Yeah.
And those days, this is what the Prophet ﷺ gave guidance to.
Yeah. So what? Just to reiterate what Brother Yusuf was saying, he's basically saying that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam intended his teachings to lead to the gradual end of slavery, and by actually limiting the opportunities and of acquiring new slaves and kind of allowing new slaves to become free. Like they were saying that's probably one of the best acts to free a slave. If you've done something wrong, you should try and free a slave. That's like how you could be forgiven. So it was them trying to end it as opposed to it like encouraging it to continue.
So giving us plenty of opportunities. Obviously, that doesn't apply to us here now. We don't have that opportunities. But in the Prophet's times, to abolish slavery, that's what we would require to be done. To one of the things that is to gain more reward is to free a slave. Yeah.
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 Fantastic. So can we very quickly have a slip in a nasheed, if you don't mind, ladies? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
So
think
what
that's
we'll do
good,
is
yeah.
we've had some requests on our show to listen to have some nasheeds in there. So I'm going to put one big family in for some of our young listeners. So inshallah, we will catch you on the other side of this nasheed, inshallah.
the similarities between us. Take a minute and see yourself in the mirror. You look like me, those eyes, lips, you can't deny. Have you thought about why we look the same? Why we feel the same? Don't tell me it's by chance. Oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, we're one big family. Oh, oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, just one big family. It doesn't matter if you live far away from me. You feel, I feel, you bleed, I bleed, you cry and I cry. We sleep and dream. Sometimes we're sad, sometimes we're happy. You breathe, I breathe. We love, walk, talk and we smile. Have you thought about why we look the same? Why we feel the same? Don't tell me it's by chance. Oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, we're one big family. Oh, oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, just one big family, family. I care about you, and I wish you could realize there's no difference between us two. We're part of one family, no matter how far you are, and even if we don't know each other. Oh, you and me and you, we are one. Oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, we're one big family. Oh, oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, just one big family. Oh, oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, we're one big family. Oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, we're one big family. Oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, just one big family. Just one big family.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is your brother Maher Zain. For my latest news and updates, join me on Facebook.
Right, that is One Big Family by Maher Zain. It is a nice nasheed, isn't it, girls? Kind of, emphasizing that we are one big family in this world. The world's become a smaller place.
Yeah.
We've been having a very serious conversation, but on a bit of a lighter note, the world is becoming a smaller place. We are one big family, one big ummah, and whatever's happening around the world, we should feel other people's pains and make. I say this before as well. Engage yourselves in dua. If you can't help somebody physically, when you can then make dua for them, and there's a lot happening around the world, and we should all, as a bare minimum, for those people who are oppressed, in any form of slavery, we should make dua for them, as a bare minimum. So those duas are powerful. Whilst we don't see, we may not see the output straight away. Allah has our du'as. They are there. They will be used at the when Allah says the time is right, and But the bare minimum we need to do is make du'a. What do you think, girls?
No, that's good. I was going to say, when you make dua, in return, the angels make dua for you. Just going back to Maher Zain, are you a Maher Zain fan?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes and no. It's what my kids make me listen to.
Oh, my brother-in-law is like
Number one fan.
legit addict. Like, oh no, I wouldn't want to say addict, but it's him and my little sister play a game
Yeah.
where they'll Halima's my youngest sister. She'll like they will have his eyes closed. Yeah, Halima will play a song, and literally within the first like 0.3 seconds, he'll be like, "Yep, it's this song," and they just do that for hours. And they were doing it this morning, just hours, and just doing that over and over
Wow,
again.
I didn't know that.
And he knows like all of them. He's literally like the biggest Maher Zain
He knows what he
fan
wears
girl.
in the music,
Music
the
video,
videos.
yeah.
He knows what he wears in every video.
Yeah, there's a funny one. The song Medina.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a really weird part where the burger turns into the
Prophet
Prophet's
mosque.
and he literally knows it all. He's like, I'm not sure about that one though. I don't know why they do that. But he's like, yeah, I'm just thinking about it. He's a massive like.
I'm gonna see him in a different view now. Next time I see him,
He literally loves it.
loves it. So, does he? Would he do it? Would he copy his hairstyle? Would he? Is it to
No,
that
no, no.
level?
He's not. No, he's not like that. But he'll literally like he. Didn't he? No, he didn't message him.
Once he was about to cry. Like, I think in Ramadan, he Maher Zain, he released the nasheed, the prophets. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's 99 names. Yeah, he actually cried in Ramadan because like it's so beautiful, mashallah. Yeah, like he was just so happy that he'd released it, because we usually listen to the 99 names, and because he'd released it, he was just so happy about it.
It's a funny fact. I personally listen to. To be honest, I don't really have time to. I try and stay away from like music, but when I do listen to my nasheeds, I listen to like Native Deen. I don't know if
Yeah, the
anyone
OGs,
remember them.
yeah.
Native Deen and
Sami Yusuf.
yeah, and also have you listened to Atif Aslam's 99
99
names?
Names.
That is beautiful. I don't.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a bit weird though. Like basically, I was listening to it on my work laptop. I don't even know why. And what was happening was the like audio just kept like what they were doing was to make it more powerful. Their like audio kept on going up, and then it kept on going back to normal. Then it went up a bit more, but it was actually really nice. It's got like 11 million views, and it's with Coke Studios. Like in
Okay.
a couple
Well,
of
do you know
weeks.
something? I had it lined up. I'm gonna finish the show with that nasheed.
That'd be
So
good.
if we kind of just conclude our riddle, and then we can get on that. The first riddle answer was a fire, and the second riddle answer was a chicken in an egg. Did you girls get that?
No,
No, you didn't.
I would never have got that ever.
I would have had to sit down with a pen and paper to get that, like proper thought about it.
I know. I think these kids are the kids are
hard, man.
that's-
That's really hard.
They do get it. They love the riddles. Well, thank you for all of those who have been sending your messages in. Inshallah, we will catch you again next Sunday, same time, 4 o'clock, at 4 to 6, and we have a mixed batch of guests and co-hosts and a whole lot of fun activity. What I want to do is we're going to play this. I wanted to play. We'll play again in full, but as we come to the end of the show, I'll leave a few minutes onto the last bit of the show, and inshallah, we will catch you on the next show and see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
يا من هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم الملك القدوس السلام
الكريم